You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast, your local source for upcoming events, hot new listings, and bite-sized interviews with business and community leaders. Here's your host, Brent Jones.
Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to the Season 3 finale episode of the Fort Erie Podcast. That would be Season 3, Episode 8. It is Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. And this will be the last episode of the Fort Erie Podcast until sometime next spring. Sad, I know, but thank you for joining me. My guest today will be Anastasia Boak, one of the co-founders and owners of Down the Rabbit Hole Theater Company in Ridgeway. And quick forewarning, we conducted our interview by phone, so we may encounter a few audio issues. I don't know, we'll find out here in just a moment, but I'm hoping for the best to end the season. Fun fact, by the way, Anastasia was nominated by you, dear listeners, to be a Season 3 guest on the show, and given that Season 3 is drawing to a close, it's time for you to step up again, Fort Erie. It's time to nominate guests. Who would you like to hear from Season 4, which will debut sometime spring of 2021? To nominate a guest, simply visit theforteriepodcast.com and access the show notes below this episode. Scroll down the page a fair ways to the comment section. Leave me a comment using your Facebook account, letting me know who you'd like to hear from. Now, to kick things off today, I've got a bit of an update for you, dear listeners. Many of you know that I participated in Movember this past month and grew a gnarly, hideous mustache in support of various men's health issues such as prostate cancer and testicular cancer. And at the time I'm recording this episode, thanks to generous donations from you, Fort Erie, I was able to raise just over $1,000. In fact, the tally was $1,001 the last time I checked. So thank you so much for the support. To check out photos from my mustache journey and to see the final tally, the final amount raised, please check out the show notes below this episode. Moving on, let's see what's making news in Fort Erie this week. First story, Fort Erie will soon be among the Niagara municipalities lining up in opposition to a plan by the Ford government. This plan involves making changes to the Conservation Authorities Act. The changes have been proposed as a part of Bill 229, which I understand is the Protect, Support, and Recover from COVID-19 Act, which was introduced at Queen's Park on November 5th. So for more information on this story and every story we talk about, please visit the show notes below this episode. Next, Crystal Beach residents will be able to enjoy some new festive decorations this year from the Friends of Crystal Beach in partnership with the Fort Erie Beautification Committee. So this is along Ridgeway Road. Residents will find a whole host of festive things, including holiday decorations hung on hydro poles. Be sure to check that out. And just lastly, here's a great story. Selena Carlson, a local 19-year-old, auditioned for America's Got Talent on November 14th. It was a virtual audition, of course, thanks to COVID-19. The article that I've linked to in the show notes in Niagara this week describes how Selena has autism and was nearly, mostly non-communicative until she was 13. And thanks in some small or perhaps very large way to vocal lessons she received at Fort Erie School of Music, Selena was able to step out of her shell and, the dream of being one of the very few Canadians to audition for America's Got Talent came true for her this year. Very cool story. All right, so for this week's hot new listing, my pick is going to be a brand new 2020 build located at 1229 Plato Drive in Fort Erie. This property is listed by Casey and Marge over at Revel Realty. The property is listed for $642,500. So this beautiful new home has 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, more than 2,000 square feet of living space, main floor laundry, and a double garage. It's close to schools and all amenities. You can call me for more details or just check out the link in the show notes below this episode. And now checking in with the Fort Erie Questions and Answers Facebook group this week, Jackie asks, can anyone recommend a good plumber for sump pump issues? There were a couple of different answers that I saw in the comments, but the top response was for J. Muro Plumbing and Heating on Garrison Road. Let's see. Phil asks, is there someone local who custom prints t-shirts? The top answer in the comments was Canadian Landmark Embroidery, which is located at 475 Central Avenue in Fort Erie. And I can personally attest that they do great work over there. So I think that just about does it for what's happening in our community this week. Now it's time for my interview with Anastasia Boak. All right, folks, welcome back. I am joined here on the phone by Anastasia Boak, co-owner of Down the Rabbit Hole Theater Company in Ridgeway. Welcome to the show, Anastasia.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
Well, thanks for making some time to chat with me. I really appreciate that. And I'd like to start by asking you the same question, really, that I ask all of my guests, which is what makes, the town of Fort Erie such a great place to live and work?
Well, that's a great question. I love Ridgeway and Fort Erie. I have grown up in this town, and I consider it a gem. I grew up in Hamilton, and that's where I was born and raised, and moved to this region when I was about 9, and I've been here my whole life, and it's so special. There's arts and culture that are thriving here. There's beautiful trails and the beach to explore outdoors. You're right over from Buffalo, so it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from, Buffalo, where there's so much culture, and Toronto and Niagara Falls. So it's just a great place to live and raise a family.
I couldn't agree more. And I wanted to ask, did you know, before I'd reached out to you, did you know that listeners of the show had nominated you to be a guest for season 3?
I didn't, and until you reached out to me, I didn't know. So that I feel so honored, and makes me feel like I have some fans, and our theater company has fans in this area, which is it's great. It's so wonderful.
Well, I think you do have fans, and I think that ties nicely into my next question, which was, when was Down the Rabbit Hole first founded, and kind of, what's it all about for people who maybe aren't aware?
Wonderful. So Down the Rabbit Hole Theater Company started about 6 years ago, and we began at the sanctuary with one class, and we had one class of 12 children, and it was supposed to be an introduction to the performing arts. There is a lot of performing arts and culture in this community of towns, but there was nothing really localized to Fort Erie and Ridgeway, and I went to school for performing arts, and so did my co-partner, Ashley Krawczyk, who also went to university for drama and education. And so we saw the need in Fort Erie and Ridgeway. And so we began with just a small group of 12 kids meeting once a week, and now we run over 12 classes. We have summer camp. We also run a glee club with a musical director. So that's focused on singing. And so that's our company. Well,
that's exciting, and I'm even learning something new here. And when you say that you have like over 140 kids, I mean, do you have programs as well for adults? Do you offer things for maybe more mature, people who might like to be involved in theater? Yeah.
Yeah. So prior to COVID hitting, we had started running improv night for adults.
Oh, cool.
Teamed up with the Sanctuary and Brimstone Brewing. So the adults would come, and it would be 2.5 hours of improv and beer. So, and it was so much fun.
When you mentioned that, you and your partner have had drama education, went to university, I mean, was theater always a passion for you?
Absolutely. So my partner and I, Ashley, met in the theater, actually. So there was a community theater group in Fort Erie many years ago. It's no longer there now, but that's where we originally met, was on stage when we were, I'm maybe 9 or 10.
Okay.
We were little munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. So that's how we grew our friendship.
Okay.
And then we both continued the love for theater.
I imagine COVID-19 has made live productions a bit of a challenge. So how have you guys responded to that?
So what we have done is we ran a 7-week program for our kids. And what we have done is we run classes, socially distanced, with shields and protective equipment. So this week we're filming our movie, which is so exciting. We have an incredible filmographer from London. His name is Adam Walsh, and he's filming our movie. So,
well, I'd like to learn a little bit more about the movie, but just first, I wanted to jump into the rapid fire question round, and this is just something kind of fun I like to do with guests so that people can get to know you a little bit better. So I'm gonna
improv on air. I love it.
This is basically, that's exactly what it is. I don't have beer for you, so no improv and beer, but basically, yeah, we're just going to kind of put you on your toes here. Just rattle off answers as quick as you think of them, okay?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So if you could meet any historical figure, who would you choose and why?
Oh, Amelia Earhart, and I think she's an inspirational female.
Very cool. All right. What is the meaning of your name? Does Anastasia have a meaning?
Yes, it does. It's a Russian name, and it means resurrection.
All right. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An actress, 100%.
Okay, good. If you had a time machine, would you go back in time or into the future?
Definitely back in time. Maybe to the 20s, I think.
Okay, that'd be fun. What was the first thing you ever remember buying with your own money?
Oh, boy. A Shania Twain CD.
That's an honest answer. I love it. What's your favorite family tradition?
Definitely Christmas. We hide, it's a German tradition, and we hide the glass pickle, the Christmas tree, and then the person who finds it in the family gets an extra present.
The glass pickle. I heard you correctly, right?
It's a glass pickle. It's a great German tradition.
That's very cool. All right. Who had the most influence on you growing up?
Definitely my parents. They're an inspiration to me. And I would also say my friend Ashley, who I own the theater with.
Very nice.
We've been best friends, and it's great.
All right. And lastly, what was the worst job you ever had?
Worked at Churston Shores in a haunted house when I was 12 in the field. It was abandoned.
I think that concludes the rapid fire question round. So thank you for being a good sport. And you didn't even have to pass, not on a single question.
Oh.
So you really...
No, I was ready for you. This is theater, right?
You really do have some improv skills. That's amazing. All right. Just kind of in conclusion, for somebody who'd like to learn more about getting involved or potentially taking an improv class, what would be the best way to reach you or the best way to connect?
We have a website, downtherabbitholetheaterco.com. We also have an Instagram page as well that you can check out that has lots of great pics of our kids.
Very cool. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me. I really appreciate you taking my call.
No problem. Thank you. And hopefully you'll be able to join us for one of our improv nights.
I would love to. Welcome back, everybody. As I mentioned last week, with more COVID restrictions in place across the region, I am not going to be covering community events to end this season. But that doesn't mean we can't do one more edition of
This Month in Fort Erie History, presented by HalfPennyDreadfuls.com.
December 24th, 1813, Daniel Forsyth wrote his last will and testament.
I, Daniel Forsyth, in the township of Humberston, in the county of Lincoln, and the province of Upper Canada, being in poor state of health, calling to mind the immortality of my body and the uncertainty of the continuance of this life, being in perfect mind and memory, I declare this to be my last will and testament.
The document left several specific instructions as to land divisions in Lincoln and Bertie townships among his numerous children. As a loyalist settler, Daniel Forsyth and other members of his family went on to become one of the most prominent names within Bertie Township.
And we're back. Fort Erie, I sincerely want to thank you for tuning in for yet another season of the Fort Erie Podcast. This show will return sometime next year for season 4, next spring. So please make sure to subscribe wherever it is you listen to podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even YouTube. A huge thanks to Mrs. Eugenia Mooney and Mr. Michael Fury for contributing all of the Fort Erie history segments this season. Special thanks to Ray Rosatani at RE/MAX Niagara for providing real estate market updates for us throughout the season. Big thanks to James Kulik and Jake Alamang for joining me for special guest segments. And of course, thanks to all of my main featured guests this season. Couldn't have done the show without you. And for you, dear listeners, if you've missed any episodes this season, you can catch up right now at the Fort Erie Podcast.com. I wish you and your families the healthiest and happiest of holiday seasons and unlimited prosperity in the new year. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, Fort Erie. Talk with you soon.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones, a sales representative with RE/MAX Niagara Realty Limited Brokerage. Follow @BuyWithBrent on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates. Subscribe to the Fort Erie Podcast on popular platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and catch a new bite-sized episode every week. Until next time.